She hired a cleaner, saw the woman cleaning the whole house, and in the end said she didn't need the service because the house was already like this before. But fortunately, the cleaner had taken photos of the before and after. So here's the story of the lady who suffered from all this, staying until the end. I should have known this was a scam from the start. When the woman called me to clean her house, I could already see that she was the kind of person who treated workers as if they were ghosts. She didn't ask my name, didn't look me in the face, just threw the keys in my hand and told me to clean up the mess before leaving for an important meeting. My name's Sofia Garcia, and I've been running my cleaning business for 5 years now. I'm a single mom with 2 kids in middle school, and this cleaning gig was supposed to help cover my daughter's braces this month. I've dealt with all types of clients before, but something about Mrs. Eleanor Prescott fell off from the beginning. I expect perfection, she'd said on the phone. My standards are exceptionally high. From the outside, her house looked like something out of a magazine. High gate, immaculate garden, luxury car in the garage. But she only had to open the door for the truth to come out. It was a complete disaster. It looked as if a hurricane had come through and thought, you know what? I'm going to do some extra work today. There were dirty dishes piled up in the sink, clothes thrown all over the sofa, the carpet covered in stains, and the smell of old food that screamed for help. The bathroom? Better not to mention it. But that's okay. That's what I was there for. I had brought my cousin Mia along that day. Something I don't usually do, but this job seemed too big for one person, and Mrs. Prescott had agreed to pay extra for a second cleaner. Holy crap, Mia whispered as we surveyed the mess. Is this lady for real? She made it sound like it was just light tidying on the phone. I took a deep breath, tied up my hair, and started. Mia and I worked nonstop for hours. We vacuumed carpets, washed the floor, scrubbed the bathroom, dusted even the places that probably no one would ever notice. We washed and put away the dishes, folded the clothes, made the house look like a 5-star hotel. About halfway through, Mia discovered something concerning. Sophia, check this out, she called from the home office. She was holding what looked like an eviction notice. This is dated last week. Looks like she hasn't paid her rent in 3 months. That set off alarm bells, but what could I do? We were already halfway done with the job. And then, just as we were finalizing the last details, I heard the door open. There she was, returning from that important meeting, which, from the smell of strong perfume and the bags of expensive stores, looked more like a day of shopping. I stood there, smoothing out my blouse, waiting for that minimum of recognition that any human being deserves. But all I got was a quick glance to the side and a grumble. She took off her sunglasses, took one more cursory glance around the room, and with the cleanest face on the planet, let loose. Hey, but the house was already clean. It took my brain a few seconds to process that. What do you mean it was already clean? I had basically restored that place to its original state of humanity. What did she think was happening? Cleaning fairies came in at dawn and organized everything? It wasn't possible. No one had the courage. But she did. And at that moment, I knew this woman was going to try to pull a scam. Mia, who had been organizing the kitchen, walked into the living room with a look of disbelief on her face. Excuse me. Mrs. Prescott barely acknowledged her. And who is this? I didn't authorize a second person in my home. This is my cousin Mia. We discussed on the phone that I'd bring help for a house this size, and you agreed to the additional fee. I did no such thing, she said dismissively. And regardless, as I was saying, the house was already in perfect condition. I honestly don't see what you've done. I've dealt with strange customers before. Those who forgot to leave payment, those who changed their minds at the last second. Even those who thought they could negotiate the price after the job was done. But this one was on another level. Mrs. Prescott crossed her arms, looked around once more, and let out a theatrical sigh. Yeah, I don't even think it needed cleaning. The house was already like this when I left. I had to stop myself from laughing or screaming. I looked around, analyzing my surroundings with new eyes. The sofa, once covered in crumpled clothes, was now spotless. The shiny floor, free of the crumbs and layer of dust that seemed to be part of the decor before. The kitchen, which earlier looked like the battlefield of a bankrupt restaurant, now organized like a store window. And this woman, with the biggest scowl on her face, wanted to convince me that the house was already like this. Mia stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. Are you kidding me? We spent 5 hours cleaning this disaster zone. There were pizza boxes under the couch that looked old enough to vote. Young lady, I don't appreciate your tone, Mrs. Prescott said coldly. I don't know what you think you cleaned, but this house has a weekly service that comes in. Perhaps you're confused about which property you were supposed to be at today? This was a new twist. Now, she was suggesting we'd broken into the wrong house. I could see Mia was about to lose it completely. I took a deep breath. I knew that if I said anything cross, she would use it against me. People like that always pretend to be the victim. Do you really think the house was clean before? I asked, keeping a polite tone even though inside I was wondering if she was simply being facetious or if she had a memory problem. She shrugged, giving me that I don't know, I didn't see it. It's not my problem, look. Look, all I know is that I went out and when I came back, I didn't see any difference. Maybe you didn't do much. Maybe I didn't do much. In my head, I already imagined every possible scenario, from a trial where I sued this woman for being a blatant liar to an investigative documentary exposing people like this called Cleaning Scammers. But instead, I just took out my cell phone, opened the gallery, and showed it to her. Yes, because I already knew that something like this could happen. I always took before and after photos to avoid this kind of scam. So the house was already clean, right? Her silence was the best thing that happened to my day. Mrs. Prescott stared at the screen of my cell phone for a few seconds without blinking. The photos showed exactly what I knew, a complete mess before and a spotless house after. I could even sell them as advertisements for my service. She blinked a few times, giggled nervously, and turned her face away as if my cell phone had started emitting radiation. Ah, but that doesn't prove anything. You could have tampered with those photos. I don't know. There are apps that do that. There you go. Now I was an expert in digital editing, just a full and honest housewife. From behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of Mia's phone camera clicking. She was taking photos of Mrs. Prescott's reaction. What do you think you're doing? Mrs. Prescott snapped at her. Documenting this conversation, Mia replied coolly. For our records. You have no right. Actually, Mia cut in Texas is a one-party consent state for recordings. I can record any conversation I'm part of. I learned that in my pre-law class. That wasn't entirely accurate. Mia had never taken a pre-law class in her life, but the bluff worked. Mrs. Prescott's confidence wavered visibly. I took a deep breath. There was no point in arguing with someone who treated reality as something optional. So, you think I brought dirty dishes from home, spread clothes around your living room, and threw dirt on your floor just to pretend I'd done something? She opened her mouth to reply, but realized she had no argument. So she opted for the classic coward strategy, changing the subject. Well, anyway, I don't remember agreeing a price with you. How convenient. She remembered calling me, giving me the keys, leaving for the meeting, which was more like a shopping day. But when it came to paying, her memory went into energy-saving mode. I looked at the woman and saw that she wasn't even disguising it. Her plan was simple, wear me down until I got tired and leave without getting paid. Unfortunately for her, I wasn't the type to give up easily. Yes, you do. I wrote it down in our conversation, and I have the message on my cell phone. If you want me to show it to you. She twisted her mouth as if she were chewing on a lemon. It was clear that she didn't expect me to be prepared. Oh, what an exaggeration. I only said that it might need cleaning. You assumed it was something big. I did. Of course. I broke into her house and, in a burst of generosity, cleaned everything for free, hoping that perhaps by some quirk of fate she would decide to pay me. It makes perfect sense. Patience was already at its limit. I had done my job. I had proof. And I wasn't going to leave there empty-handed. But I knew that with people like that, the game wasn't just to collect. It was about winning through humiliation. And I already had a plan for that. Just then, Mia's phone rang. She answered it, listened for a moment, then held it out to me with a grim expression. It's Tammy from Classic Cleaning, she said. Tammy ran another cleaning service in town. I took the phone, confused. Hello, Sophia? It's Tammy. Listen, I just got a call from Mrs. Prescott saying you broke into her house, claiming to be from my company. She wants to hire me to come actually clean the place tomorrow. Is that the job you mentioned yesterday? The one in Oakwood Heights. My blood began to boil. This woman wasn't just trying to avoid paying us. She was actively trying to sabotage my business by claiming I was an imposter. I put the phone on speaker. Tammy, you're on speaker now. I'm standing in Mrs. Prescott's living room with my cousin. Mrs. Prescott hired me directly, not through your company. And now she's claiming we didn't clean her house despite the fact that we spent 5 hours here and I have before and after photos. There was a pause on the line. Oh boy, Tammy finally said. Sophia, this isn't the first time. She did the same thing to me last year. Called me in for a deep clean, then claimed her house was already spotless when I arrived. I had to threaten small claims court to get paid. Mrs. Prescott's face went from smug to horrified in an instant. She hadn't expected me to have connections with other cleaning services in town. I had already realized that arguing with this woman was like trying to explain quantum physics to a pigeon. No matter what the argument, she would just shit on the table and act like she had one. So instead of continuing to debate, I just smiled. Not a friendly smile, but that smile that says, okay, if you want to play, then let's play. Nice. Got it. So you think that I cleaned the house without arranging anything, and that's why you don't have to pay. Is that right? She crossed her arms, trying to look confident. It's not that I think so. I just don't know if the job was worth all that. Oh, good. Now, as well as trying to cheat me, she wanted to make it look like I was charging too much. The point was simple. I could go on insisting, trying to convince her of the obvious. But people like that don't work on the basis of logical reasoning. They only understand one thing, exposure. So without saying another word, I opened my cell phone and went straight to the neighborhood Facebook page, a group full of people who love gossip more than they love their own children. I posted the before and after photos of her house with a caption. Some people really think that cleaning work happens by magic. If anyone finds my magic wand, please let me know. In the meantime, does anyone know a good lawyer for small scams? The woman didn't even see what I did, but it only took a minute for her cell phone to start vibrating. Her face turned red instantly. What did you do? Her voice came out almost as a whisper. Ah, so now she was worried. She picked up the phone and started scrolling. I could see her eyes widening as the comments came in. First came that gossip neighbor who lives down the street and knows everyone's business. Wait, isn't that Eleanor Prescott's house? Then there was a woman who had probably already been a victim of the same scam. Wow, what a shame. Who hires a service and then tries to leave without paying? Revolting. And then the final blow from a lady whom everyone respected in the neighborhood. If that's who I think it is, it's not the first time this has happened. Very ugly. But what happened next took us all by surprise. A new comment appeared from a profile with a professional headshot. This is Robert Prescott, Eleanor's husband. I'm currently out of town on business. Eleanor, what is going on? Why does our house look like a disaster area in these before pictures? You told me you've been keeping up with everything while I've been away. The room went deadly silent. Mrs. Prescott's face drained of all color. She stared at her phone in horror, frantically typing and then deleting, clearly at a loss for what to say. Your husband didn't know the state of the house? I asked, genuinely surprised. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. He's been in Europe for 3 weeks, she whispered. He's very particular about cleanliness. He thinks I maintain the house perfectly while he's gone. Mia raised her eyebrows. So you've been living like this, then planned to quickly clean it before he got back. Mrs. Prescott didn't answer, but her expression said it all. The phone in her hand continued to buzz with notifications. Another comment appeared. Eleanor, I'm catching the next flight home. We need to talk about several things, including the credit card statements I just reviewed. This was followed by a string of comments from neighbors expressing shock and offering sympathy to Robert. The woman looked at the cell phone as if it had just given her a death sentence. And in a way, it had, because now the whole neighborhood knew about her scam. She started typing like crazy, probably trying to respond to the comments, but no matter what she said, the damage had already been done. It was impossible to reverse the situation when even the gossipy neighbor on the corner was already typing a long text about how certain people always want to take advantage of others. Well, I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. There was nothing else I needed to do. The humiliation was working for me now. The woman snorted, wiped her face as if trying to calm down, and then finally faced reality. Fine, I'll pay. But you didn't have to make such a fuss. Oh, so now it was dramatic? Because in my mind, the real scandal was an adult trying to pretend that a house cleaned itself so as not to pay for the service. But that was all right. I'd already won. She took out her wallet with an expression of pure suffering, as if she were donating a kidney and not paying for a service she had really received. Every note she took out seemed to physically hurt her. I took the money and counted it right there. Yes, because I wasn't going to run the risk of her trying to get one over on me again. Money, right? No shorties. Good. Before I left, I looked at her one last time. Her face was still red. Her cell phone still vibrating with notifications from people who were already planning never to trust her with anything again. Thank you for the payment. Now your house is clean. And your reputation? Well, not so much. With that, I turned my back and left, feeling a satisfaction that's hard to describe. It wasn't just the money. It was the feeling that this time, the scammer hadn't won. As we walked to my car, Mia was scrolling through the Facebook group on her phone. Whoa, this is blowing up, she said. People are sharing stories about her pulling the same stunt with gardeners, nannies, even a plumber. Really? I asked, genuinely surprised at the scale of her scamming. Yeah. And get this, someone from the country club just posted that she was about to be kicked off the charity board for financial discrepancies in event budgets she managed. The next day, when I logged on, the comments had doubled. People laughing, making jokes, others telling similar stories. I found out that it wasn't the first time she tried to defraud someone. There was a gardener, a nanny, even a plumber, all fooled by the same cheap trick. But now she had lost. And more importantly, no one else would fall for it. What surprised me the most was the division in the comments. Some people celebrated me for exposing a serial scammer, calling me a hero for small business owners everywhere. Others criticized me for publicly shaming someone and suggested I should have handled it privately or through legal channels. A heated debate broke out about whether posting photos of someone's messy home was an invasion of privacy, regardless of the circumstances. The story took an unexpected turn a week later when I received a call from Robert Prescott. He apologized profusely for his wife's behavior and explained that she'd been struggling with compulsive shopping and lying to cover her tracks. He asked if I'd be willing to become their regular cleaner at double my usual rate with payment made directly through him. I had to think about it. On one hand, I needed the money. On the other, did I want to go back to that house after everything that happened? In the end, I accepted the job, not just for the money, but because sometimes the best revenge is showing up with your head held high, knowing you won. Because in the end, there are some things that even the best cleaner in the world can't clean. And Eleanor Prescott's reputation was one of them. Have you ever experienced something like this? Let me know in the comments. Should I have handled it differently? Was posting on social media too harsh? Or was it justified after she tried to scam me? The comments are always divided on stories like these. If you like this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any more stories like this. See you in the next video.